A skinny blonde kid just stabbed the city's most feared crime boss over 20 times, and while everyone around him was absolutely convinced he was about to get hauled off and thrown in a cell forever, this guy walked into the police station, sat down with a cup of tea, and started schooling the cops on criminal law. Then he walked right back out the front door, free, no charges, nothing. How? Because he wasn't just some random street punk. He was a reincarnator, someone who had crossed over into this world carrying an unlimited set of skills. Every single one of those 20 stab wounds had been placed with surgical precision, deliberately avoiding every vital organ. Not one of them was lethal. And on top of that, in his previous life, he had been a top-tier legal professional who knew the law inside and out. From that day forward, a wild, cocky blonde kid with absolutely zero fear was born. Picture this. Our guy is going absolutely crazy with a knife, stabbing the crime boss over and over again. And at the same time, he's screaming at the top of his lungs, "Help! Somebody help me!" His voice was so loud it drowned out the crime boss's own howling. If you weren't standing right there watching it happen, you would have sworn he was the one being attacked. The gang members standing behind the boss were frozen solid, jaws on the floor, minds running in circles trying to process two things at once. First, who on earth does this guy work for, and where did he get this kind of nerve? And second, why is their boss still alive after being stabbed this many times? The guy was built like a wild boar. By the time all 20 stabs landed, our blonde kid finally stopped and stood there in silence. One of the gang members, a big dude covered head to toe in tattoos, swallowed hard and took a cautious step forward. "Hey bro, calm down, all right?" But the moment he realized our guy wasn't responding, he panicked and slipped back into the crowd. Hands shaking, he yanked out his phone and dialed 3 digits. "Hello? This is Fengcheng Police Station. What's your emergency?" "Help! Someone's been killed." The voice on the other end barely finished speaking before the tattooed guy erupted, then caught himself, glanced nervously back at our blonde kid, and dropped his voice 2 notches. "There's a psycho over here. He just stabbed someone." "A stabbing? What's your location? Can you describe the suspect?" "P Street, number 769. The big guy instinctively looked up to describe the suspect and locked eyes with our blonde kid, who was standing there smiling directly at him. That 1 second of eye contact made the tattooed guy want to dig a hole in the ground and disappear into it. He hunched over and whispered, "He's got blonde hair, wearing a little wolf fang pendant around his neck. Looks like some kind of celebrity. Oh wait, I remember now. Yeah, he's that one guy who claimed he got run over by a tank. Stop asking questions, just get here already. Please stay calm. Officers are already on their way. Stay on the line." Our blonde kid pocketed his hands and took one slow step toward the group. That was all it took. The entire gang stumbled backward in unison, leaving the poor tattooed guy standing alone at the very front of the crowd. He threw his hands up in desperation. "Big bro, don't come any closer, please. I gotta take my grandpa to kindergarten later. I can't die today." The whole gang looked like they were one step away from breaking into a full sprint. Our guy just sighed, shook his head, and calmly sat down right next to the crime boss on the ground. The moment he sat, the gang collectively exhaled. The tattooed guy quickly pulled everyone together to huddle up. "Is the boss dead?" one of the younger members whispered. "Shut your mouth," the tattooed guy snapped, shot a glance at the boss, still sprawled on the ground, and after a long pause, finally squeezed out, "Look, I already called the cops. Whether the boss lives or dies is up to fate now." Meanwhile, back at the Fengcheng police station, a sharp female officer was already barking orders. "An assault in broad daylight? This city hasn't seen anything this brazen in years. Contact the tactical unit for backup. Everyone gear up and move out." The officers scrambled into their vehicles, red and blue lights blazing as the squad cars tore through the streets. Inside one of the vehicles, Officer Xiao Wanbai let out a slow breath and narrowed her eyes at a reporter crouched near the station entrance. "Great. Media's already here. This just got a lot more complicated." And that reporter? Her name was Lin Xiaoxiao, a rookie journalist who had been staking out the station for half the day after a tip from a friend about a major incident downtown. When she saw the police mobilizing like this, she knew this was the real deal. She grabbed a bike and tailed the convoy straight to the scene. Once there, she flashed her press credentials, talked her way past the perimeter, and stepped into the chaos. What she saw stopped her cold. A man was lying on the ground covered in blood, alive but barely moving, and crouched beside him was a young guy holding a knife. Her first reaction? Wow, he's really handsome. She snapped back to reality when the shouting started. At that moment, a female officer came charging straight toward the blonde kid, and Lin Xiaoxiao raised her camera and captured the whole thing. But as she reviewed the photo, something caught her eye. In the split second before he was tackled to the ground, he was smiling. Officer Xiao Wanbai didn't have time to think about his expression. The moment he was restrained, she handed him off to the male officers and turned her attention to the gang members. "You lot, get over here and explain what happened." The gang members started talking over each other, stumbling over their words. "Officer, look, we were just here to put on a show, you know what I mean? We don't actually fight, but that guy over there, he's the real deal. hell? He was stabbing our boss without even blinking. Like, does this dude even have tear ducts? Xiao Wanbai pieced together the full picture, then gave her orders calmly. Get the paramedics to take the injured man to the hospital. Everyone else back to the station for questioning. As the officers moved in, the blonde kid was pulled to his feet. Xiao Wanbai looked at him and her eyes immediately narrowed. You again? That's when our guy learned something interesting. The body he had reincarnated into apparently had quite the criminal record, a real repeat offender. Do we know each other? Don't play dumb. That face isn't going to save you. You could have gone into streaming with your looks and actually made something of yourself, but no, you chose this life. And now, she crossed her arms. Now you're done. I'm telling you right now, you're looking at a life sentence. But before either of them could say another word, there was a loud rustling on the ground. The crime boss, the man who had just been stabbed 20 times, suddenly sat straight up. He looked around wildly, completely lost, and cried out, "Wait, I'm not dead? Can someone please help me over here?" Our blonde kid absolutely lost it. He burst out laughing right there on the spot. I knew he was fine. He managed between laughs. Officer, as someone with specialized training, I don't usually laugh. I just remembered something funny. Xiao Wanbai stared at him like he had lost his mind. 30 minutes later, our guy was sitting in the interrogation room, radiating pure innocence, while Xiao Wanbai paced back and forth across from him, eyeing him like he was a convicted murderer. He leaned back in his chair. Hey, what's with that look? Even if you're the prettiest officer in the building, you can't just go around accusing innocent people. He was completely relaxed. For a man with a law background, a police interrogation room wasn't intimidating. It was practically his second home. Under Article 182 of the Criminal Code, he began, adjusting his posture. I was actively facing unlawful aggression at the time, which legally entitles me to a reasonable degree of self-defense. That was the line that finally snapped Xiao Wanbai's patience. She wheeled around and cut him off. You killed someone. Do you even understand that? How does someone do what you did without flinching even once? Are you really willing to throw your entire life away in a prison cell just to feel powerful for one afternoon? Her voice was firm, but controlled. I strongly suggest you start talking. We've already confirmed there's surveillance footage in the area. Once we pull that video, any chance you had to negotiate disappears. There was a long pause. He sat quietly, and for a moment, something genuine flickered across his face, because the truth was, he still hadn't heard any update on the crime boss's condition. His system had told him all 20 wounds were non-lethal, but what if something went wrong? Xiao Wanbai noticed his expression shifting and assumed he was finally starting to feel the weight of what he'd done. Starting to regret it now? A little late, don't you think? She paused. Though, for what it's worth, I heard from the officer who went with the ambulance. The man is still conscious. He might not die, but serious injury is basically guaranteed. You're looking at 10 years minimum. The moment those words hit his ears, his entire body relaxed. He let out a long, quiet breath. Is there anything you'd like to confess at this time? She hadn't even noticed yet that his whole demeanor had completely changed. He rolled his shoulders back and a slow, mischievous grin crept across his face. Yeah, actually, there is something. He shrugged casually. I need a cup of tea. Pu'er would be ideal, but I'll take bilochin if that's what you've got. And please, use spring water. Tap water makes my teeth hurt. Bang! The metal table shook as Xiao Wanbai shot to her feet, eyes blazing. You have got to be kidding me. Right at that moment, the interrogation room door swung open and an officer stepped in beside Xiao Wanbai. Captain, we pulled the surveillance footage from the scene. Xiao Wanbai glanced over at our blonde kid one more time. Still not a trace of nervousness on his face. She said nothing, let out a quiet sigh, and headed for the door. Before she left, she threw one last look over her shoulder. Your last chance just disappeared. In the conference room next door, Xiao Wanbai reached for a cup almost without thinking and brewed herself a full glass of green tea. It wasn't until she was already sipping it that she realized what she'd done. She swore to herself, absolutely swore, that she did not make green tea just because that little punk had put the idea in her head. She took a bitter sip and kept her voice flat. Play it. The beginning of the footage was more or less what she had expected. A few gang members chasing our guy through the street. But what happened next completely blindsided her. On screen, one of the attackers closed in with a knife, and in that same instant, our blonde kid started screaming for help at the top of his lungs, while his hand was already moving, driving the knife forward again and again in perfect rhythm, like his mouth and his body were running on two completely separate systems. Xiao Wanbai stared at the screen. This kid actually was acting in self-defense. She was stunned, but she had to admit the way he did it was deeply unsettling. Based on her experience, she could tell pretty clearly that the threat to his life on that footage was real. His counterattack was forced, and the reason he kept going was almost certainly panic, pure fight or flight terror. By every standard, this looked like a textbook self-defense case. Clean, almost perfect, except for one massive problem. The consequences were severe. The victim was still in surgery. One of her colleagues exhaled slowly. Based on the video, this guy Subai could legitimately be ruled self-defense. He paused. But the reality is he landed over 20 stabs. If the victim dies, there's a real chance this gets classified as excessive force or even negligent homicide. The debate in the conference room gradually died down. Xiao Wanbai walked back to the interrogation room with a crease between her brows. She set the tea down in front of our guy. He picked it up without a word and took a slow sip. Too weak. You're complaining now? Xiao Wanbai's eye twitched. Our guy leaned back in his chair with a lazy grin. Look, I appreciate the tea. Ask me whatever you want, but make it quick, because I'm actually getting kind of sleepy and I'd like to wrap this up. Oh, really? Xiao Wanbai crossed her arms. Then explain this. From what we saw on the footage, you were clearly reacting to an attack. But how exactly does someone who's screaming for their life simultaneously dodge every single strike, stay completely balanced, and deliver one controlled stab after another? That's not something a normal person can do. That's something a machine does. Our guy thought about it for a second, then folded his hands over his stomach with a theatrical expression. Maybe I'm just that 1 in 10,000 kind of guy. Clearly, you are not. Xiao Wanbai's patience stretched thin. I'm telling you, Subai, yes, this qualifies as self-defense, but excessive force and negligent homicide are still crimes. That was over 20 stab wounds. Actually, I'd like to correct that. He raised 2 fingers with a calm, almost academic air. It was exactly 20. Xiao Wanbai almost laughed out of sheer frustration. Before she could respond, he kept going, completely unbothered. And here's the thing, the law doesn't care about the number of stabs. What matters is the outcome. Based on the injuries sustained, that man should be classified as a minor injury at most. Does minor injury constitute excessive force? Come on, officer. Do you really think people living this kind of life don't understand how the law works? The room went completely silent for a beat. The world really has flipped upside down, Xiao Wanbai thought. Street thugs are out here lecturing police officers on criminal law. 20 stabs, minor injury. She stared at him. Do you hear yourself? Who do you think you are? Some elite surgeon performing a procedure? You can't even read properly. Claiming you understand medicine is laughable. He met her gaze without blinking. Maybe I actually do. How about a bet? He nodded toward the cup of tea. If I win, you bring out the best tea leaves in this whole station and let me try them. Xiao Wanbai studied him carefully. She had seen the victim's condition with her own eyes. As far as she was concerned, that man was not making it through the night. The screaming, the wailing, that was practically a death rattle. A person with serious injuries doesn't have the energy to howl like that, unless that was the last burst before the end. She was just about to take the bet when her phone rang. She hit speaker without hesitating. Talk to me. What's the situation? A moment of silence on the other end. Then, the sound of someone crying in the background. Even Xiao Wanbai, who had seen more than her share of tragedy, felt the weight of it settle on her face. She looked back at our blonde kid, and this time her eyes were cold. Our guy's expression flickered. Wait, she should be a minor injury. Did I miss? Then the voice on the phone came back. Captain Xiao, I'm on it. Make sure the hospital gets whatever they need. The department will cover the initial costs. Cover what exactly? The officer on the other end sounded genuinely confused. You mean the after-death expenses? Yes. The funeral arrangements? Oh, I already handled all that. Total came out to about 2,300. Xiao Wanbai's eyes went blank. 2,300? That's barely enough to get through the front door of a funeral home. Before she could even process that, the officer let out an awkward laugh. Captain, you're incredible. Actually, it was closer to 2,100. The extra 200 was for boxed lunches. The guys were starving. Xiao Wanbai's voice dropped. 2,000 yuan for a funeral. Who died? Dead silence on both ends of the line. Xiao Wanbai's voice sharpened. What is the victim's actual condition right now? The officer on the other end sounded almost breezy about it. Oh, Captain, don't worry. The hospital just issued their preliminary report. Minor injury. The guy's completely fine. A pause. Then, as if to prove the point, the officer seemed to hold the phone towards something, and through the speaker came the unmistakable sound of an extremely loud, extremely dramatic, wailing voice. He just stabbed me. Right here, and here, and here. He used me like a pincushion. Even Xiao Wanbai, who prided herself on keeping it together in any situation, momentarily lost her composure. She stared at the phone. Minor injury? It's actually minor injury. She glanced up slowly, and there was our blonde kid giving her the most exaggerated shrug of pure, helpless innocence she had ever seen. The officer's voice crackled through again. Captain, I know, right? Even we were floored. 20 stabs, and every single one missed every vital organ. Every single one. I mean, our guy's hair was standing on end when they heard that. Xiao Wanbai hung up. She stood there for a moment, just processing. Then she looked at our guy, something between disbelief and begrudging respect slowly crossing her face. He leaned forward, fully in his element now, practically holding court. Let me break it down for you. At the time of the incident, my rights were actively being violated, and here's what you need to note. I stopped the moment he no longer posed a threat. 20 stabs wasn't even close to my limit, by the way. The result? Minor injury. My action served only to stop him from continuing to harm me. That is, by every legal definition, standard self-defense. He paused, glancing around the room like he was addressing a jury. I rest my case. The court may now deliberate. The officers in the room exchanged glances. Xiao Wanbai looked mildly confused, and our guy caught himself. Sorry? Force of habit from a past life. The room fell completely quiet. Every officer in there was thinking the exact same thing. Bro, you're a blonde kid from the streets. How do you know more about criminal law than we do? Xiao Wanbai slowly walked toward him and leaned in just slightly, lowering her voice. I don't know why, but you don't feel like the same guy I've seen in here before. He blinked. He hadn't expected her instincts to be that sharp. Who else would I be? Maybe I've just been working on myself lately. He tried to say it with confidence. It didn't land. Even he didn't believe it, and judging by the look on Xiao Wanbai's face, neither did she. He quickly pivoted. Anyway, we had a bet. You lost. Time to pay up. Get me the good tea, please. Xiao Wanbai's brow furrowed. She let out a short, reluctant hum, but she turned around and walked out anyway. Shortly after, the official injury report came in from the hospital. Minor injury confirmed. Xiao Wanbai stared at that report for a long moment, genuinely questioning everything she thought she knew. He actually understands medicine. This little punk actually knows exactly what he's doing. Outside the station, a crowd of reporters had been camped out for hours, and right in the middle of them was Lin Xiaoxiao. She had been the first to break the story, writing her exclusive photos to a viral moment online and even earning a personal commendation from her editor-in-chief. Now she was back at her usual spot outside the station doors, phone up, running a live stream. The comment section was going absolutely insane. Did they sentence him yet? He's getting the death penalty for sure. 20-something stabs. Even livestock couldn't survive that. Lin Xiaoxiao couldn't confirm anything on air, but privately, she kind of agreed with the comments. She thought back to the guy from yesterday. Actually pretty handsome now that she thought about it. She shook her head. What a waste. And then the crowd around her suddenly stirred. She spun the camera toward the station entrance and stopped breathing for a second, because walking out of those doors, completely calm, holding a teacup, moving at the pace of someone on a Sunday afternoon stroll, was him. He raised one hand to shield his eyes from the sun, squinting casually at the daylight like he hadn't just spent the night in police custody. If he looked any more relaxed, he'd be asleep on the front steps. Lin Xiaoxiao froze behind her camera. Something was very wrong. This girl, Lin Xiaoxiao, had come here to cover a murder case, not to stand face to face with the actual suspect. $3,000 a month was not nearly enough to be dying on the job like this, but there was no denying it. Our blonde kid had just walked out of that police station free as a bird in broad daylight. The live stream comment section absolutely exploded. Wait, isn't that the guy from yesterday? He just walked out. No charges? Bro has to have serious connections. Nobody gets out that fast. Everyone was losing their minds. And right in the middle of all the chaos, our guy spotted Lin Xiaoxiao standing there completely frozen, camera in hand, staring at him like she'd just seen a ghost. He smiled at her. To Lin Xiaoxiao, that smile looked less like a friendly greeting and more like something she'd see right before her life ended. The microphone slipped right out of her hand and hit the ground. He walked over, crouched down, and picked it up. You all right? Lin Xiaoxiao mechanically took the microphone back, her brain completely offline. By the time she snapped out of it, he was already strolling away like he didn't have a care in the world. She stared after him for a solid few seconds before finally managing to speak. That guy's actually kind of a gentleman. Meanwhile, across town at the Fengcheng Oriental Wealth Tower, headquarters of the Fierce Tiger crew, a man named Chen Ahu was sitting alone staring at a photograph. Chen Ahu was the boss of the crew, and the man in that photograph was our blonde kid's original body, someone the crew called Xiao Bai. Never thought it'd end like this, Xiao Bai, he muttered quietly. To think we'd be separated by life and death. The gang members standing nearby immediately clamped their hands over their ears because they knew exactly what was coming next. Chen Ahu threw his head back and absolutely wailed. Xiao Bai, your big brother has lived a life of crime and never believed in anything. But you're the one thing I can't let go of. I hope we're brothers again in the next life. He took a long, shuddering breath and began carefully wiping down a memorial tablet he had already prepared. One of the younger gang members slowly inched over and poked him. Tiger bro? Xiao Bai hasn't even been sentenced yet. Isn't setting up a memorial tablet a little premature? Smack the kid grabbed his head. Chen Ahu pointed at his phone with absolute conviction. What do you know? I looked it up. Xiao Bai's getting executed minimum. I happened to walk past the funeral parlor yesterday. They were running a sale on memorial tablets. I figured Xiao Bai deserves a good one, so I just grabbed it while I could. He sighed again, long and heavy. The gang members all exchanged glances and started muttering among themselves. Poor Xiao Bai, man. Going out there alone, chasing down a whole crew of people by himself. We gotta learn from this. Never go that hard. One by one, they shook their heads. Someone lit a cigarette, then another. Soon the whole room was thick with smoke, and nobody noticed the figure standing in the doorway. Our blonde kid had shown up with a Janbing in hand halfway through eating it, listening to his own eulogy with a mildly confused expression. He followed along with the mood of the room and sighed right along with everyone else. Wow, this Xiao Bai really had it rough. Did so much for the crew and ended up like that. Right? Chen Ahu slapped his knee and spun around like he'd found someone who truly understood him, then froze. His pupils slowly expanded. He was still sitting in his chair, but somewhere inside, Chen Ahu had already left the building. Tiger bro! The gang members rushed over, grabbed him, tried pinching his philtrum, even resorted to some lower methods of stimulation. After a considerable amount of chaos, Chen Ahu's soul finally made its way back into his body. He sat there, clamping his legs together, veins bulging on his forehead, staring at our blonde kid and not making a single sound. Sensing his crew was about to launch into round 2 of the revival attempts, he desperately raised one trembling hand and pointed straight ahead. Everyone followed his finger. The entire room, over 100 people, went dead silent for several full seconds. Our blonde kid looked around at all of them, then slowly pointed at himself. "Is this Xiaobai you're all talking about? Me?" As if on cue, the whole crowd took one synchronized step backward, which pushed poor Chen Ahu, who had been hiding in the back, straight to the very front. "Is this how you treat your boss?" he hissed at the crowd. Then he turned forward, plastered the most painfully stiff smile on his face, and slowly approached. Our guy still hadn't finished chewing his Jianbing, so he just stood there in the smoke looking back at Chen Ahu without saying a word, and somehow that made it so much worse. Chen Ahu kept moving, kept smiling that frozen smile, and whispered as he slid past, "Xiaobai, my man, let me just squeeze by." That was the signal. Every single gang member bolted for the door in a full stampede, shoving and tripping over each other, but our blonde kid simply straightened up slightly in the doorway, and that was enough to stop every single one of them cold. Chen Ahu, finding no escape, had no choice but to walk back over with the memorial tablet clutched to his chest like a shield. "Look, I swear I'll avenge you. We're brothers. You wouldn't hold this against me, right? Tiger bro, didn't you say you don't believe in ghosts?" Our guy took the tablet, looked it over with mild distaste, and tossed it aside. "Also, this thing is really cheaply made." Chen Ahu dropped to full begging mode. "Xiaobai, I am begging you. Rest in peace, okay? Whatever you need in the afterlife, just send a dream, and the boys will burn it for you. Anything you want." He was still negotiating with a ghost. Our guy sighed, grabbed what was left of his Jianbing, and held it out. "Tiger bro, you might not believe it's me, but you can't argue with a Jianbing. Feel it. It's still warm." The smoke in the room was starting to clear. Chen Ahu reached out slowly and touched the Jianbing. It was warm. He looked at it, then back at our guy. Something in his eyes shifted. "Xiaobai, you're actually alive?" "Obviously I'm alive. I went to the police station, had some tea, and came back. Meanwhile, you guys out here telling the whole world I'm dead." Chen Ahu still wasn't fully convinced. He reached out and pressed 2 fingers against our guy's wrist to check for a pulse. Only after confirming there was one did he finally stand up straight. "Xiaobai, you've got some serious connections, bro. You killed a man and walked out the same night." Before our guy could even respond, the gang members in the back started buzzing with excitement. "I always knew Xiaobai had people in high places. Bro pulled strings. That's the only explanation. The fierce tiger crew is about to come up, boys." Our blonde kid stared at the ceiling. 3 imaginary lines materialized above his head. He cleared his throat. The room went instantly quiet. Everyone looked at him, eyes wide, waiting. Is it completely impossible that I just used my knowledge of the law, made a legally sound argument, and walked out through the front door on my own merit? Silence. A long pause. Chen Ahu walked over and pressed his entire palm against our guy's forehead. "No fever. So why are you saying weird things?" Our guy looked at the room. The most educated person here was himself, a vocational school graduate. The rest of them collectively peaked at 2nd grade. 9 years of compulsory education had somehow passed every single one of them by. He sighed. "Tiger bro, we literally grew up together. You know better than anyone I don't have connections." He kept it simple. "The guy took 20 stabs, but I know medicine, so the injuries were minor. In the eyes of the law, what I did was self-defense. That's it. Understand?" He looked out at the sea of blank faces, completely blank. He bit into his Jianbing. "Fine. Direct approach it is. You know Captain Xiao, the detective? The one they call the ghost hunter? Xiao Wanbai?" He let that land. "Her and me, we've got a good relationship. You understand now?" Chen Ahu's whole face transformed. "There it is. That makes sense." He nodded with deep, satisfied confidence. "That's our Xiaobai." The whole crew erupted. Our guy grabbed Chen Ahu by the arm and pulled him aside before things got more out of hand. "Anyway, forget all that. Real talk. That Jianbing, I bought it with money I borrowed from Captain Xiao. I need 10,000 yuan to pay back the favor. Get me the cash." Chen Ahu's eyes went wider than they had at any point during this entire ordeal, including when he thought he was face to face with a ghost. Our guy slammed a hand over his mouth before he could yell. "Keep it down. 10,000. The Fierce Tiger Crew is a serious organization. Don't tell me you can't cover 10,000. Chen Ahu opened and closed his mouth a few times, then just gave up trying to speak and launched straight into a list of grievances. The rival crew had challenged them last week and they lost. Paid out 3,000. Old Lee ate something bad and ended up in the hospital. That was another 2,000. Chen Ahu himself got caught gambling and the bail came out to 5,700 and the landlord was about to throw them all out if they didn't pay up. Our guy held up a hand. Wait. How have we even been surviving. Chen Ahu opened his mouth, closed it again. That massive, imposing frame of his somehow looked small. For one brief moment, the feared boss of the fierce tiger crew looked less like a crime lord and more like a man who hadn't eaten in 3 days. Our guy pinched the bridge of his nose, took a lap around the room, then suddenly smacked himself in the forehead. Wait, the original body had been with his crew for a while. There had to be savings. He remembered the original owner had a whole stack of bank cards somewhere. Sure enough, he opened the wallet and cards cascaded out like a waterfall. He picked up his phone and checked them one by one. 40 cents, 80 cents, 10 cents. After filtering out the maxed out credit cards, the 3 remaining cards combined for a grand total of 1 yuan and 30 fen. He stared at the number on the screen. He genuinely could not afford a cab ride. Xiao Wanbai had been completely right. The original owner of this body really did go meal to meal, not knowing where the next one was coming from. After a lot of mental effort, he remembered the system had given him 8 yuan when he first arrived. Combined with the loose change, that was just barely enough to cover the 950 he'd spent on the Jianbing. He decided right then, pay Xiao Wanbai back first, no matter what. He pulled out his phone, opened the payment app, and transferred the money before he could second guess himself. The transaction went through instantly. The balance screen updated. 0, complete 0. He stared at it. They seriously drained 8 yuan from me. I am done. Chen Ahu had watched this entire financial tragedy unfold from 2 feet away. He seemed to be wrestling with a decision. Slowly, with great effort, his right hand disappeared into his pants. Our guy's eyes went wide. He took a slow step back. The gang members around them, however, did not react at all. They were just watching patiently, like this was totally normal. Are the guys in this crew really this open-minded? He forced himself to lean in. Tiger bro, I understand you're young and have needs, but there are like 100 people watching right now. Even as the boss, maybe read the room a little. What room? What needs? Chen Ahu didn't look up. Xiaobai, I'm not going to lie to you. We're flat broke. I sewed a secret pocket into my underwear. That's where I keep the money. He yanked his hand out with great effort. 2 crumpled bills emerged, radiating an energy that defied description. Chen Ahu held the 2 bills out with trembling hands. Xiaobai, this is the Fierce Tiger Crew's entire emergency fund. I know you need it bad. Take it. Our guy reached out to grab the money, and it didn't move. Chen Ahu's voice cracked just slightly. Xiaobai, please, spend it carefully. He finally pried the bills free and stood there staring at 200 yuan in his hand, his mind spinning. Something wasn't adding up. According to his memories, the Fierce Tiger Crew wasn't small time. They had territory. The original owner alone had over a dozen guys under him watching an entire street. So where was all the money going? What happened to the protection fees you were collecting? Chen Ahu blinked. The what? Protection fees from the businesses on your turf? Bro, it's a new era? Chen Ahu looked almost offended by the question. Who's out here collecting protection fees anymore? You want us to break the law? Our guy stared at him. Then how does this crew make any money? Oh, that's easy. Chen Ahu straightened up proudly. The boys all do daily wage work. Construction, deliveries, whatever's hiring. Honestly, if we weren't all here today planning your funeral, we'd have made decent money. Silence. Our guy looked around the room at 100+ men covered in tattoos, dragon sleeves up to their shoulders, built like they bench press cars for fun, all of them apparently clocking in and out of day labor gigs every morning. He felt something inside him give up completely. So let me get this straight. The legendary Fierce Tiger Crew, too honorable to collect protection fees, too law-abiding to run any kind of illegal operation, was out here surviving on daily temp work. These were the street's most feared gangsters, living paycheck to paycheck, day by day. Still gotta respect Xiaobai though. One of the gang members piped up from the back with genuine admiration in his voice. Remember a little while ago, he took out a 10,000 yuan online loan and treated the whole crew to a real meal, legends only. Our guy's head turned very slowly. Say that again. You took out a 10,000 yuan loan from one of those lending apps? The guy repeated cheerfully. Bought everyone a proper feast. It was amazing, Xiaobai. Our guy pointed at himself, quietly. I took out a 10,000 yuan online loan. The room nodded enthusiastically. The color drained from his face. The sky is falling. It's over. Everything is over.